criticizing Mitt Romney's promise to loosen the new regulations on the big banks and Wall Street, but it was how Biden said it.
He's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Romney quickly taking...
Saudi-led oil cartel announcing that it will cut production by 2 million barrels a day. And that is bad news for Americans who are already paying upwards of $3.86 a gallon for gasoline.
It's also a major embarrassment for the White House. President Biden has been desperately trying to avoid this outcome for months. He even paid a visit to Saudi Arabia in July after he vowed to make the country a pariah over its human rights abuses.
The fist bump fell flat, along with the president's promises to lower gasoline prices for Americans struggling with inflation.
I'm doing all I can to increase the supply for the United States of America, which I expect to happen. I'm using every lever available to me to bring down prices for the American people. I have a plan to bring down the cost of gas and food. I'm doing everything in my power to blunt Putin's price hike and bring down the cost of gas and food. I led the world to coordinate the largest release of global oil reserves in history.
White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich is live on the North Lawn. They woke up to some pretty difficult headlines, Jackie, and there were reports that they were trying to work the OPEC members right up until they lost.
Yeah, there sure were. A tough day here for officials at the White House. Yesterday, they announced new plans, reversing course, basically, saying that they are, in fact, going to continue selling the country's strategic oil reserves as needed in order to stabilize prices, even though just one day prior, they said that there were no plans to do that. The country's supply is sitting at a 40-year low. And rather than embrace new policies, as they're being pushed to do, to try to ramp up domestic production, the U.S. is now turning to another dictator whose government, by the way, we don't even officially recognize. The Wall Street Journal headline this morning reads, U.S. looks to ease Venezuela sanctions, enabling Chevron to pump oil. According to that report, the White House would deliver significant sanctions relief if President Nicolas Maduro resumes talks with the country's opposition leader to hold free and fair elections in 2024. The National Security Council did not deny it, telling Fox, as we've previously made clear, we will review our sanctions policies in response to constructive steps by the Maduro regime to restore democracy in Venezuela and alleviate the suffering of the Venezuelan people. And there's speculation that a prisoner swap over the weekend was a first step in cultivating Venezuela as an alternative to OPEC. The U.S. released 2 of Maduro's drug dealer nephews who'd been convicted after fair trials in the U.S. in exchange for 5 oil executives that Venezuela was holding. Now, President Biden is facing swift condemnation from the GOP.
The entire world is messing with us. This president and his left-wing cronies in Washington have completely abandoned our national security strength. Just a mere 2 years ago, we were leading the world and we were actually exporting oil and gas.
Well, domestic producers had hoped that the White House would turn to them to meet the moment. The president of the U.S. Oil and Gas Association tweeting this, OPEC said no. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve option is all but gone now. The White House has one option left. It's the one they should have never turned away from in the first place. The U.S. oil and gas industry and its workers. Life comes to you pretty fast. But officials here signaled no plans to do that, repeating their talking points yesterday that domestic oil producers have not used existing leases that are available to them, Dana.
You got to have permits in order to exercise those leases. Thank you so much, Jackie. It's good to have Dagan here today to explain, like, just on the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, that's supposed to be our emergency supply.
Right, in terms of actual shortages, but instead it appears as if it was a political move all summer. So the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is now at the lowest in 38 years. Since President Biden took office, the number of barrels in it has fallen by 35% since then. And now the Biden administration, although it still has some more releases on deck, it will have to begin refilling it at higher prices. And Saudi Arabia, no pun intended, knows that they have us over a barrel.